always remember that there was never any plan whatsoever for Brexit. The whole idea, at least, from the Brexiteers, was we'd do Brexit and then wonderful. It would all be, wonderful sunshine and rainbows. Isn't it all happy and clappy and glad stuff? But of course, that's not the reality. That's not the plan, of course, that they had. Their plan was we do Brexit and then we go and do all this crazy free market fundamentalist stuff, like getting rid of all regulations and all government involvement in business, bureaucracy, regulations. We just trash it all and just let the free market run wild. Of course, if they'd actually said that during the referendum and run on that, they would have lost completely. And it's not even the case that all the Tory party is in favour of that type of Brexit. Remember, during the series of indicative votes, remember those, crazy heady days, but the closest one that actually came to winning, I remember it was only 3 votes off, was Ken Clarke's proposal to stay in the customs union. And that was the closest any vote came to winning. And at the time, the ERG rallied its strength, because remember, that's when he was at its height, rallied its strength to try and get a complete, quote, clean Australia-style Brexit, as it was called, that we'd trade on WTO terms and we would just leave. We wouldn't even bother with negotiations. We would just leave and that would be it. How many votes did they get in total? 63, which again sounds like a lot, but that was just how powerful at the time the ERG was, and that was all its members voting for that. Meanwhile, all the other members of parliament voted against it, and it just goes to show you how divided the Tories actually were, having no idea, no plan for what to do with Brexit itself, even though they actually now had it. And the best way to describe them was they were the dog that finally caught the ambulance, that finally caught hold of its tail. It was when, okay, now what do I do? And we have had Kemi Badenoch come out this morning and say, or at least criticize, her party's past plan for having no plan over Brexit. Which you've got to turn around and say, you were part of that government. Why did you not say anything at the time about it? Can't think why. And then it sort of makes you think, well, if your party didn't have a plan for Brexit, what would then be your plan now for Brexit? And of course, there is no plan, because, as I always keep on saying, the moment Kemi Badenoch actually starts to put out policy, the P words, the party will just start to self-implode and start infighting, because that is what they cannot agree on. They cannot agree on a direction, and they cannot agree on policy, because that is how split the Tory party is, and especially over the B word, the Brexit words. So we're going to have a look at what Kemi Badenoch has said this morning on this. But trust me, in a big year where, again, Brexit is going to be in the news again, about this, Keir Starmer's also announced who is going to be leading the negotiations on this. I'm quite actually happy with the guy that he's chosen. It's quite good news, to be honest, but we'll probably do another video about that another time. But I want to get into Kemi Badenoch's comments on this, because it just goes to show you the lack of thought, the actual substance that was needed to having to deal with one of the biggest changes, like, fundamentally, to the UK since, like, the end of the Second World War, when we set up the welfare state. Just so, yeah. Anyway, let's get on to this. So before we begin, like I say, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. There are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as always, and you can always click the like and share button. So let's crack on then into this. So this coming from the BBC with the title of Badenoch Criticises. Badenoch criticises Tory handling of Brexit, except she was in power when this was happening. What did she have to say about that? Not a lot. Not a lot. So, in her first major speech of 2025, Badenoch now will attack Labour's government, but will now also own her own party for repeatedly pledging to lower immigration numbers and, quote, kept going up for promising net zero carbon emissions by 2050 without a clear plan. Well, it's not that there wasn't a plan, it's that, once again, you had a group called the Net Zero Scrutiny Group that kept on trashing your plans. Just like you had another group called the European Research Group who kept on, trashing your plans. Anyway, Badenoch, quote, pledged to tell hard truths, even when it's difficult to hear, to restore trust with the public. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this, guys. Here we go. 2025, the era where Badenoch comes out and tells the hard truths to the public. Yeah, I'm sure she's going to be telling some really hard truths about her time and her government's time in office. Oh, I'm sure she will be. The Labour chairwoman, Ellie Reeves, now accused the Tory leader of doing, quote, the exact opposite for rebuilding trust, offering nothing in opposition but more infighting. In pre-released extracts now of her speech, Badenoch will say the public will never trust politicians unless we can accept our mistakes. I will acknowledge the Conservative Party made mistakes. Really? What mistakes? That will be interesting, what mistakes she will own up to. But she is due to say Badenoch has obviously not named who she holds responsible. Gee. Yeah, not naming names, hardly restoring trust if you're not willing to say who was the one who caused those problems. But in her speech, she will obviously say that we announced that we would leave the European Union before we had a plan for growth outside the EU. We made it the law and that we would deliver net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And then only did we start thinking about how we would do that. We announced that we would lower immigration, but kept immigration going up. These mistakes were made because we told people what they wanted to hear first and then tried to work it out later. Gee, you mean the entire Tory strategy for years, going back to David Cameron, of working for short-term wins and ignoring any long-term planning, which is ultimately what really completely hobbled this, Tory, the past 14 years of like Tory rule. Say it ain't so. Anyway, that's going to stop under my leadership. I'm absolutely sure it's going to stop under her leadership. Well, we'll see if she actually what she does when she talks about policy. But so far, she's shown no sign of that. We're going to turn around our country. We're going to have to say some things that aren't easy to hear. Again, like what? Badenoch will also use her speech to draw a sharp contrast with Keir Starmer, who claims it, quote, does not believe and has ever made a mistake. She will also attack Labour for announcing policies without a plan to back them up. When you haven't worked out what you're going to do in opposition, you will accept whatever you are given in government, she will say. That's why Rachel Reeves announced, quote, mad and bad ideas on stitching, on snatching winter fuel and taxing family farms. Again, obsessed with that idea. That isn't going to sort of, so say, win you any more votes next time around. Those options were present to us in time and time again by officials, and we rejected them time and time again because they would hurt so many people just for so little benefit. Or you mean especially with the winter fuel allowance, you're worried about losing votes. And of course, the family farm tax, again, is not taxing family farms, it's taxing large farm estates, which, bear in mind, because of this rule, has sent the price of agricultural land skyrocketing. Doing this will actually lower the price of agricultural land and will bring more people in who want to buy agricultural land, not for like some, tax dodging scheme, but because they actually want to be farmers, because they actually want to go into that business. Anyway, Badenoch, who was elected late as Tory leader in November, has previously said that she will now focus on rebuilding trust for voters by announcing now her own policies. We'll see what happens. Badenoch promised in her victory speech to, quote, renew the party by returning to, quote, conservative first principles. Again, what are those going to be? What are those policies going to be? I doubt when she actually does this speech today, there is going to be any policies at all announced. I think she's just going to try and say, oh, look, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for when we were in power. Because a lot of the things I can guarantee she's being told behind the scenes is, oh, no one from the Conservatives has ever apologized. So Badenoch's going to go out and basically fake apologize to these people. But if you are going to be, quote, telling hard truths, maybe you should actually be honest about these mistakes that you made and who made those mistakes and why those mistakes were made. But there you go. Ellie Reeves responded by saying the public, of course, rightly lost trust in the Conservatives after 14 long years of failure in government. She accused Badenoch and others of offering just another speech, but no apology for her role in Liz Truss's disastrous mini-budget that crashed the economy and left a $22 billion black hole now in the public finances. The Conservatives under Kemi Badenoch have nothing to offer in opposition, apart from now recklessly continuing to make unfunded spending commitments and overseeing yet more Conservative chaos and infighting. And yeah, oh, exactly. The second Kemi Badenoch announces any form of policy, there is going to be Tory infighting, because there's going to be people who go, that's not far right enough, that's not conservative enough. Meanwhile, there's going to be the One Nations who are going to be like, or the One National, like more moderate conservatives, are going to be like, that's too far. That is too far for us. And once again, infighting will happen. How is Kemi Badenoch going to sort out that infighting? She's going to fall victim, just as all the other previous Conservative leaders have fallen victim to infighting and the chaos and the civil war that is going to erupt once again in their party once she announces what policy she is going to do. And I can guarantee you now, it is going to be beautiful to watch. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, click the like and subscribe button. And of course, we'll see you all next time.